Hello and welcome to the Video Creator Show, where we talk the juicy details of how to succeed on YouTube. And what better way to do that than to talk directly to someone who has done it. Today, I'm speaking with Josh, creator and host of the YouTube channel AllThingsSecured. AllThingsSecured offers easy-to-follow tips and tutorials on how even non-tech savvy people can have stronger privacy and security online. Some of his biggest videos involve explanations of what VPNs actually do, and perhaps more importantly, what they don't do, and he even has a video on how to create unlimited email addresses with Gmail, which obviously can be useful for security and maybe some fun purposes. AllThingsSecured currently sits at over 150,000 subscribers and almost 12 million total channel views. Today, I'll be speaking with Josh about how he built it all. The Video Creator Show is brought to you by VidChops.com, an editing service that helps take the burden of editing off your back. Check out VidChops.com to see how you can save yourself tons of time and energy while taking your YouTube channel to the next level. Josh, thank you so much for joining me. My first question for you is why security? And before you answer, I always like to ask this sort of question because I think it's nice to hear about your background, kind of a little bit about your life before YouTube, and like what got you into this niche to where you were able to talk about online security and get to over 100,000 subscribers. So I'm sure there's some interesting stories here. Why security? Let's hear it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you, Grant, for allowing me to join you on the podcast. It's a pleasure. It's a joy to be here. I first got into security, gosh, it was at least 6 or 7 years ago, not necessarily by choice. It was actually by geography. My wife and I had lived in China for 10 years. And we had lived in a very western part. If anybody's listening to this and knows Chinese geography, we were out in Xinjiang. And if I say that and you know what I'm talking about, you're already grimacing because it's just it's like Tibet, except even kind of worse in some ways, in terms of just oppression, in terms of just government surveillance. And being in that kind of place, now let me also say I loved the place. Like it's just a fascinating part of the world, wonderful people, but I'm not a huge fan of the government policies there. And one of those had to do obviously with surveillance. So, I mean, it was during that time that we saw cameras going up everywhere. My internet activity was tracked to crazy degrees, and I was even taken in at one point and interrogated about a lot of this stuff, to the point where they're just asking me, "Why were you talking with so and so?" And it's like, "Whoa, how did you know I was talking with so and so?" And it was just kind of these eye-opening experiences. I do remember one time even just getting off the bus and walking to my apartment in China and passing through, I think it was 7 different face recognition camera systems, right?
Oh my God.
And just recognizing, man, like there's zero privacy here. And I'm not trying to pick on China because the same thing is happening in Europe. The same thing is happening to some small degree in the US as well. Like this is happening all over the world. I just feel like I got kind of the tip of the spear experience of it in Western China. And I didn't become, some security expert overnight. It was more out of necessity of trying to figure out, okay, how can I regain at least a little bit of my privacy? And then when you're in China, you also have this other side of it where, hey, I want to actually check my email, and China and Google don't get along, so China blocks Google. How do I get past that? Or, hey, I want to watch Netflix, and Netflix does not stream their content to China. So how do I actually watch? I'm a paying subscriber to Netflix. How do I watch that? And that's where you get into VPNs that do more than just privacy stuff, like they, unblock censorship, geo restrictions, all that stuff. So that was really the beginning of what I was having to get into for privacy and security. And then it just, it became this side passion project from there that grew into something that's larger than I thought it ever would be. That's for sure.
So you really were boots on the ground in terms of needing these security protocols, these apps, these VPNs, in order to, just exist there and feel comfortable. That's really incredible. I think you're probably the first person I've talked to that has firsthand experience with kind of the Chinese government and their surveillance and everything that went into that, how it felt to deal with it.
Yeah.
That is really fascinating. So when you first started posting these videos, is that after you had moved away from China, or did you like did that feel like it would have been too sketchy to be posting these videos with the Chinese government? Because I believe YouTube is blocked in China, correct?
Yeah, it is blocked in China, and the funny thing is, like, even when they were interrogating me, the authorities knew about my. I found out they knew about my YouTube channel, and they had definitely watched it. But I'm targeting a foreign audience. So if I had been speaking Chinese and trying to teach Chinese people how to get over the
Mm,
censorship in China, I think there would have been a lot more scrutiny on me. But the Chinese government is less concerned about what a foreigner is doing on the internet as much as they are their own citizens. So,
right.
foolish or not, while I was in China, I was creating this content, just from my little, corner office in my apartment, like nothing super high quality. I mean, even if I look back at some of my videos in those days, which is actually predates the All Things Secured channel. It was a China channel that I had up, and the quality just, I think every creator would say this, but like the quality just is cringeworthy. Like, how in the world did I get away with doing this, and how did I end up continuing with a quality like that? But it's just iterating over time, and then thankfully not getting in any kind of trouble for the content that I was creating.
hmm So when you first started posting videos to your channel and it kind of started succeeding, did it take a long time for you to get some real traction, or was it pretty immediate? Like, it can sometimes be really gradual, and sometimes you have a video that just really blows up, and it changes everything. Obviously, you have these kind of what is a VPN, don't use a VPN, like these types of videos that did really well for you.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, was that a gradual thing for you where it required a lot of patience, or did you get pretty immediate feedback as far as, hey, people really like this?
Yeah, and I think that was one of the things that I was really hoping to hone in on during this conversation, because if you were to look at my analytics, you would see that I do not own anything that looks like a hockey stick. In other words, like nothing of mine just went okay, okay, okay,
Mm,
wow, and now it hit
mhm.
the algorithm, and I mean, there may be a couple times where I get some bumps, but the videos that you're talking about, which are some of the videos that have crossed that million view mark, like it's just like this 45-degree slope, right? Or even less than 45 degrees. It's just this constant slope. And when I first put that video out, it did not get. I mean, it probably didn't even get hundreds of views, much less thousands of views. It just my understanding of YouTube has evolved to the point where like that video was the one that is at 1.5 million low. The not what is a VPN, but why not to use a VPN, right? Is still getting like, and I recorded that thing 3 years ago, and it is still generating, thousands of views a day. And
Mhm.
and I think again, it speaks to one of the reasons I love YouTube is just this ability to have content that is truly evergreen, and that does, it does engage the audience. If YouTube finds a video that does that, it will continue to show it to the right audience, and that's what I love about it. If I do that same thing on YouTube, if I do that same thing on Twitter, the content dies within a week.
Mhm.
But I love being able to have that content that does live on. One thing I did want to mention, because I think that a lot of us as creators, and Grant, I don't know if you feel the same way. Like a lot of us deal with imposter syndrome, right? I don't think of myself as an amazing YouTube creator, right? I
Mhm.
sit at
Yep. Mhm.
150,000. For everybody who's under 150,000, they're like, wow, that's amazing. For anybody that's over that, they're like, yeah, well, whatever. You got a long way to go. Like we're all on our own journey, and we all feel like imposters along the way. And I have like the biggest key that I feel like to my success, if you want to call it that, like to where I'm at right now, is not just like this insane quality of my videos, although I do think I have good quality.
You
It's not
do,
even
yeah.
my ability to like innovate, and okay, now I'm moving over to shorts, and now I'm doing long form, and now like it's something that I read in Jim Collins' book Great by Choice. He's the guy that did what is it? Good to Great. That was back in the 80s or 90s, but his more recent book is Great by Choice. And he talks about, he looked at a lot of different companies, and obviously this isn't YouTube, but I think that it applies here. He looked at a lot of different companies and he said, I came into this thinking that innovation was going to be the key to, successful companies that were able to do this for the long term, for 10 years, for 20 years and all that stuff. But what he came to realize is that it was successful, or it was the ability to successfully scale innovation. And he said this, and I thought it was really cool. He said, being able to blend creativity with discipline. And I think that right there to me applies so much to YouTube because, even as you asked that question, I was thinking to myself, man, I don't have any hockey stick growth, stories to tell. And yet I think part of the reason that I'm still here and I'm not burned out and I'm still going is because for me, I've found a way to blend creativity and the stuff that I love doing with discipline and not trying to get ahead of myself, not like, okay, things are going well. Now I'm going to up it to like 3 videos a week. Now I'm going to, which is a really big, what would you call it? Like I feel that urge, right? Like I feel that urge to want to like up the game. It's like, okay, well, if I'm doing 1 now and it's doing well, what if I do 2? All these other guys, they're putting out 2 a week. They're putting out 3 a week. This guy's doing 5 shorts a week. What am I doing?
Right, because it's tempting to want to grow as quickly as humanly possible. You feel the momentum. It's exciting. There's a lot of feedback, probably some dopamine involved, and you want more of it, right? It's addictive, but it can be a trap where if you scale up too quickly, then something bad can happen. You can end up producing videos that aren't as good. You won't necessarily get what you want. In fact, you'll end up working harder to get less of what you actually wanted if you go about this kind of incorrectly and adopt the, hustle porn mindset before you are actually ready to do so.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. Yeah, that hustle porn or that hustle, they've got another term for it, but it's
hustle
it
culture,
is
perhaps.
The hustle culture. That's it. And it does kind of seem to imply that if you don't do it, then you don't really want it. And I think that's incredibly untrue. I think that being able to scale innovation in a way that doesn't burn you out is probably more of a key to at least YouTube success than anything else. And that's what I love is just being able to know that, okay, I'm trucking along. I don't, if I hit 1 million subscribers in the next year or 2, great. But thankfully, I don't feel like I'm driven by the subscriber metric as much as I'm driven by the views, right? The daily views and the view duration metric, which I think a lot of, creators are kind of shifting towards that, but we're still rewarded by our subscriber count.
Oh, absolutely. And so one thing I really want to ask you about is the before times, so to speak. So AllThingsSecured seems to be your first successful YouTube channel, but you said before that you had a China channel, so like a channel where you talk about China. Was that kind of like a tourist channel? I'd like to hear about those videos because I think it's always interesting to hear like how you got to where you are now creatively, because that seemed to have been your first idea. And then you ditched it for this idea. So tell us about the development of that idea and kind of what went into that, and then ultimately why you stopped doing it.
Yeah, well, I'll start with the ultimately why I stopped doing it because that's the ezy one. We were forced to leave China, and so continuing a China vlog just doesn't make sense. I like to say that I was vlogging before Casey Neistat made it cool, And if I was just half as talented as he was, I might have taken over Casey Neistat, but I'm not. So here I am. But it was actually that vlogging format of we were living in a very unique part of China, not too many foreigners, and so I took advantage of that and decided, hey, I'll just kind of vlog my travels, and I actually worked for Lonely Planet as a writer for China and had written my own guide for that particular region. So I felt pretty knowledgeable about it. I wasn't just a buffoon kind of walking around with a camera. And so really the skill set I was honing, I was not, I was getting to, go around the region, but really more than anything else, I was honing that skill of being confident in front of a camera, of just being able to look straight in front of a camera, pretend that I'm looking into the eyes of my audience and then speak. And it's like I said earlier, you look back at, some of the earlier, it's, by the way, it's not that it matters because it's a defunct channel, but it's Far West China, right? Was the channel, and it was all the videos, and I had a few videos that went semi-viral, in other words, like they hit the 100,000 and above views. And really, I'm just exploring that region of the world and trying to create storylines that are intriguing, right? The kind of that thing that you've probably heard said before from other creators, or maybe you've talked about, Grant, where it's like, you got to have what is that hook, what's the meat, and then what's the payoff, right? What am I creating here that's going to bring somebody through an entire story? And that was my chance to learn it and to do it in a very low pressure environment. I wasn't trying to make money with that channel. I wasn't trying to become famous with that channel. I was just trying to have fun and trying to, explore this part of the world that we were living in a creative, fun way. And it was, the side benefit was really getting to understand YouTube a lot better.
hmm And that was one thing I noticed about your channel. The All Things Secure now is what I'm talking
Yeah,
about. Is you do have a good camera presence. Like you know how to be in front of a camera, look your audience in the eyes, and just talk about what you want to talk about, and not get nervous or stumble or whatever. And
thanks.
it's well done, and your editing is good too. I'm not just saying this. It's
I
good
appreciate
stuff.
that.
So I can tell that you have a lot of experience making these videos, and like there's a reason that they do well. And I think it can take a lot of years to accumulate that skill set. So like how from the creation of Far West China to where you are now, how long have you been making videos for?
Oh, goodness. Um, I've been making videos in some way, shape, or form since about 2006, I'd say. So yeah, I mean, we're running on 15
Hmm.
years now that I'm doing the math, 16 years. Obviously from a very, very low quality, this is back when I didn't even have an iPhone. It was just a point and shoot camera, till, even right now I'm looking into a fairly nice Sony, DSLR that I enjoy using here in my studio. So, I mean, I'm not a big I'm not huge on equipment necessarily, but yeah, it's been a long journey, and most of the time, it's only been recently that I've started using editors to help me. Most of the time,
Mhm.
I've had to edit my own just because of finances more than anything else.
Sure. So that was another thing I wanted to talk about with you. So you've just started using editors. What has that been like transitioning from editing your own video to using editors? Would you recommend it? Were there any growing pains involved? Let's kind of hear about, I guess, that, and then just your kind of general process for making a video.
Sure. Yeah, I would absolutely. I mean, if this is more than just a fun side gig for you, being able to eventually get to the point where you're using an editor is an absolute yes. Like I would highly recommend that. I like to think of it a lot like the analogy I would use is saying, somebody that gets married. Let's just say that I'm 19 years old and I get married at 19, as opposed to getting married at, let's say, 35 years old.
Mm,
When I get married at 19, I'm somewhat naive. I don't really know what I'm getting into. And, thankfully, my wife married me. I was 21 actually when I got married. And thankfully, she married me because I don't know if she would have married me in my 30s, right? Like if she really knew who I was. But the thing is once you get into your 30s, you're kind of set a little more. 30s and 40s, you're set a little more in your ways. You've lived life. You know what it's like to be single and how your schedule and how you want to do it. And so then all of a sudden trying to figure that out with somebody else, I've heard is slightly more challenging. It's not impossible, obviously, but it's slightly more challenging. I think the same kind of applies to editing. If you do what I've done, which is you edit your own stuff and you get to a point where I've got a style that I like, right? I know what I'm looking for, and I want to do it. Now, I'm not saying I'm the best editor, but to afford somebody that's better than me is difficult. But then to communicate what I want to an editor, having now gotten into my not rut, but my way of doing it, I feel like is a lot harder than if I had just started having someone edit from, many, many years ago.
Hmm.
Because then I don't necessarily have, like, they can surprise me with the way that they would edit, and I'd be probably a lot more open to it. Right now, I'm trying to be open to their creative way of editing, but like part of me just wants to be like, dude, just look at my previous video, do exactly that, you know?
Right.
And they can, like a good editor can do that. But it's still, it's a challenge. And I am glad, like I'm slowly, bringing editors into my process.
So how do you find your editors? I think this is one question that a lot of people have. Like there's platforms like Upwork. Where did you find them? How did you go looking for them?
Yeah, I've, looked in a lot of different places. I have actually used VidChops, and that was a good experience.
Hmm.
And then I've basically needed somebody that is more dedicated. There's a new thing. I don't know if you want me to even mention this type of stuff, but like I think there's what is it? It's called YT Jobs, I think is what it's called.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I tried that out. The problem is there's just like the term YouTube editor covers such a wide spectrum, right? Like most of the people that applied whenever I put up a job on Upwork, or if I put a job on YT Jobs or something like that, were people that just worked on these like crazy gaming. Like gaming is just so big that's what everybody had experience on. It's just these quick edits, and I wanted something a little bit different, and for me, at this point in my career, right, I'm making enough money that I'm supporting myself, and I can afford to hire a personal editor. I actually have a couple editors. I've got one that does my shorts, and then I've got one that's doing my long form. And even just being able to get on the phone and talk with them, to kind of talk through, all right, this is my vision for what I see my edits, and then whenever I send in all of my files, I'll either send in, an audio file, or I'll have my script with notes of like anything that I really want to make sure that gets put in there. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Oh yeah, absolutely. It's really crucial to have easy and smooth communication with your editors, especially editors, I would say. Anybody you're working with, of course.
Yeah.
Um, but it's because there is kind of a uh, a subjective quality to videos that I think sometimes it often takes some time, some iterations to get the style down when you're working with somebody else. And I think this is a lot of people's hesitation with working with editors is, especially as you brought up, if you have a style that you know how to do, in trying to kind of copy that onto somebody else and have them do it, it can feel daunting and kind of impossible, and then you end
Yeah.
up seeing like this sort of edited video that somebody else made of your face. And then you're like, oh god, my face is now this, and then you have to give notes back, and it
Yeah.
can feel a little daunting. But I think once you're working with the right people, and it seems this is your experience too, uh, in the long run, it ends up being worth it. It saves you time. You're able to enjoy life a bit more. You're not editing all these dang videos, and
Yeah.
that's really, really crucial. So, kind of the next thing I wanted to ask you. So, you said you're making good money now. How much of that, or I guess like maybe what percentage of that is YouTube, and how are you monetizing your channel and your kind of online presence here?
Yeah. I mean, I am monetizing through, the YouTube Partner Program. That represents not an insignificant chunk, but I would say that it's probably the least amount.
Hmm.
And most creators that, successful creators that I've met that are on YouTube, um, that's usually the case. Where if you've really been able to do well on YouTube, the actual AdSense revenue does not make up the vast majority of your revenue from the channel. So over the past, I guess, 6 months, I've really dove into sponsorships. I've always been into affiliates because I started off just doing websites and affiliate marketing type of stuff. And part of what I really enjoyed about YouTube was creating a more personal, like I feel like affiliate websites are just very, very impersonal, and I
Mm,
don't think they develop that trust between yourself and the audience. It's really just a single transaction. Somebody searches for an answer, they might find it on yours, they might use your link, and then you're done. Whereas I
mhm,
feel like through YouTube, I can create more of a trust bond with my audience in hopes that, as I'm even just this last week had conversations with a couple different brands that I personally use. I love the company and I think it would be a great fit for my audience. And I know that my audience is going to listen to what I'm saying and maybe they'll buy, maybe they won't, but they'll trust that I'm not just like taking money, that I actually have a vested interest in this, and it just continues to grow the channel as a whole. Sponsorships and really just being creative about how that is done has been a lot of fun for me to do. Like the AdSense stuff, it I don't have a lot of control over that. Like sometimes a video has a high, CPM, sometimes it doesn't.
mhm,
Sometimes, it's just it goes up and down. It's not wild fluctuations, but it grows steadily like the channel grows. But if
mhm.
I want to have like some significant changes, the sponsorship side of stuff has been fantastic. Same with the affiliates.
Yeah, and with sponsorships in particular, I was right before this. I was watching an interview with Mr. Beast that just came out
Yeah.
with Lex Friedman, and he was talking about how to integrate sponsorships into videos. And you mentioned getting creative with them. And obviously, I mean, Mr. Beast, it's almost corny to talk about him at this point because he's so huge and everybody talks about him.
Yeah.
But like, I was watching one of his videos last night, and in fact, he is really good at incorporating sponsorships into his videos. So, for
Mhm.
instance, he just had a video. I spent 50 hours in Antarctica.
Yeah.
And so they climb a mountain. They literally climb a mountain. And they
And
have
Shopify.
yes, yes,
I
okay.
know. I know.
Yeah. And he's just like, this video, I don't even know if he said this video is sponsored by Shopify. I mean, obviously, it was obvious that's what was happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's on the mountain with the Shopify flag. He plants it in the ground and he talks about Shopify on the mountain. He doesn't cut to a kind of generic pre-recorded thing.
Yes.
So like this, I think is the um, he's one of the best at doing it. And I'm curious, like when you say kind of getting creative with things, like what does that mean to you? Kind of how do you approach a sponsorship in a way where it feels like it's integrated into your videos?
Yeah. And I love that question because I've had to think about it a lot recently. I think it comes in two forms. One is the actual creative side of coming up, like climbing that mountain, putting that flag in there. I was thinking the same thing because I remember that. I'm like, man, he did it in a memorable way, like it
Yeah.
was it was part of the video. It wasn't just like, you see a lot of videos where the video's done and then the last 30 seconds is just them going through and I can imagine, I know how bad that retention graph is. It just plummets the
Yep.
moment the actual video ends. And that can't be good for the advertisers. I mean, like they can't love that. That's just they think that's the way it has to be. So being creative about how you integrate it in, a lot of that for me has to do with pairing the right advertiser with the right topic. And sometimes that makes more of a difference in a channel like mine than it does. Mr. Beast is more of an entertainment channel, so he's got to be creative about how he thinks about integrating that into whatever stunt that he's doing, such as climbing the mountain. So, I mean, he did not come up with that on the fly. He made a flag before he went down to Antarctica, and he knew exactly how that was going to happen. That was not okay. Now we got to. It wasn't an afterthought. That was part of the video planning. And I think that's key to making sure that a good sponsorship happens well. The other side of that, I think, is being creative in how you structure these kind of partnerships. And that's where I've been having a lot of fun with companies is, okay, yeah, I've got YouTube, but I also have my email list from people that come through YouTube, and those people are highly engaged. I also have the website. I can create SEO articles. I can work with brands to test out, and we're literally calling it testing out the YouTube Shorts and how that might work with them. So they love it when I come to them with creative ideas. I'll give you one example. I was approached by it was a, how do you call it? It's a secure messaging app. right? And they had a certain threshold that they want to meet. And I haven't done this yet, so I'm kind of trying to be cryptic a little bit. But they have a certain threshold that they want to meet in terms of new signups because it's a relatively new app, and it meets well with my audience, with my with all things secured. And so I said to them, okay, what if we do this? I will create an insiders group, like the app can have a group within it. I will create an insiders, an all things secured insiders where I'm gonna, use this group to bounce ideas off of. And the first 250 people get to join that group, and it's just, it's chatting with me, and they have to download the app obviously in order to do it. And the advertiser was like, that's awesome. Like it's actually a benefit to me, because now I've got this extra group that I can get feedback from and all that stuff. But just that idea of now I'm not just saying a 30-second spill, right, and taking my money and running. I'm actually invested with the company, and I'm trying to come up with something that benefits myself, my audience, and them, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a fantastic answer. So with affiliate links, I'm embarrassed how little I know about affiliate marketing. So with my channel, Treesicle and Bonsai Pop, I basically didn't do it at all. I think we had maybe like an Epidemic Sounds link, just because we used Epidemic Sounds, but we didn't really pitch it or anything. I feel like that is one type of marketing, type of revenue stream that I basically have never touched, and I've kind of wanted to get into it. But like, what advice do you have about succeeding at affiliate links? Because it seems almost like the easiest one, which is why I'm so annoyed that I don't do it. Because you have the link there, you just paste it in the description, you can talk about it in the video if you want, but you don't have to think about it much. It's just kind of there, and it's there forever. And so let's hear about affiliate links, affiliate marketing. Like, how does one get into it? How does it work? Let's hear it.
Well, I'll start by saying that affiliate revenue generates more than half of what I make in a month. And
Wow.
so that tells you how important it is to me. Now that's split between my website and YouTube, but YouTube is generating quite a good portion of that. And I love being able to track the growth and all of that. And you're right. One of the big benefits of that is it is very much a set it and forget it type of thing. And whenever a video does hit that, like the thing about sponsorships is that, if a video does hit kind of a viral moment, you don't necessarily get paid more for it. Whereas if a video hits a viral moment and you have the right affiliate stuff in place, like you can see an uptick in affiliate sales immediately. Like there are days when I've woken up and in that day I've already made a couple $1,000s just from affiliates. And
Wow.
that's not necessarily normal, but it's like, okay, well, that's a nice little bonus, and I think a lot of affiliate, like most anything else, can be done in a shady way and in a more ethical way. And in my opinion, the ethical way is really very much based on trust. And that trust is done by, one, me only talking about and using products and services that I genuinely think would be good. Like my filter is, would I recommend this to my mom and dad? And if the answer is no, then I'm not going to put an affiliate link for that, and then being just really upfront with my audience, sometimes in the video, but definitely in the description. Hey, this is an affiliate link. If you want to help support this channel, then using that link makes a big difference. It really does. And I even have a whole section within each of my video descriptions where I'm like, all this content has been made free for you. And if you are willing to support this channel even more, here are my recommended resources for, secure email, for, deleting your presence online, like all of these different things. And those are all affiliate links that I track through each one of the videos.
Mm-hmm. And sorry, I had a question and then I lost. This is why we edit this podcast.
That's okay.
But I love what you said. I mean, that idea of waking up and realizing that you have made a couple $1,000s, that's awesome. I feel like that's kind of the dream too. Like just not having to make a sponsorship every time, at least necessarily. having about half of your revenue kind of just coming in this way, this really seems like the way to do it, or like an important part of monetizing a channel that if people aren't doing it, like myself, you should start doing it. And it really, you're not the first person I've talked to where it seems to be making like a huge difference.
Yeah.
So the next thing I wanted to talk to you about is your website. So allthingssecured.com.
Hmm.
You have quite a lot of good information on here. You have a free security guide. How to obviously be more secure online. It sounds like this is part of how you've kind of turned this into a business as well. You obviously offer people good information on here. So can you tell us about like how your website feeds into your business as well, and sort of how you built it and the creation process of all of that?
Yeah. I mean, really, it started. It started with a YouTube channel, and then which is somewhat backwards for me. I usually would start with a website and then grow into a YouTube channel, but this one particularly started with a YouTube channel, and then I realized the power of a larger funnel at the top. And what I mean by that is, YouTube acts kind of like a search engine for people, but it's a find. They've got a word for it, but it's like a finding engine, a recommendation engine. That's what it is. So that I'm constantly getting people that have never heard of me or seen me before introduced to the All Things brand without me having to do anything. Just create good content, and YouTube will put it in front of the right audience, and then they'll follow down my funnel. The website acts similarly, and they are hopefully, the rising tide lifts all boats. And in this case, it would be, anything that goes well with the website hopefully improves the YouTube channel, and vice versa, because I interlink the two quite consistently. If
Hmm.
I'm doing a tutorial on something that you're having, like how to set up an email alias, right? And I do that on YouTube. I'm going to create a very similar um, article it's a how-to article that basically takes screenshots from that, so that if there are some people that would much rather just read through it, they can do that. And it also makes it a little easier for Google to offer this as a search result. So obviously YouTube videos themselves can make for good, and they are being shown in search results a lot more. But man, I can increase my footprint if I've used that same content and created an article that if someone wants to read it instead. And I'm that way. Sometimes I don't want to sit there and listen to somebody babble on, because some people aren't very concise. They just want to like hear themselves talk, I feel like. And I would rather just let me read it. Let me look at the screenshots. I can skip through and find out what I want. And so like repurposing the content, both, and right now, let me say it this way. I think that I'm changing my process a little bit, Grant, wherein a lot of my research happens in the process of writing the article. So right now I'm writing an article on the best alternatives to Boxcryptor, because Boxcryptor was acquired by Dropbox in order to create zero knowledge encryption, end-to-end encryption for Dropbox. Like it's overall a good thing, but people who were using Boxcryptor are now kind of left having to figure out what to use now. And so I want to do that research for the article, and that article is then going to make creating that video so much easier, because now I've done all the research. I've basically got my script, and
Hmm.
I can use them both together.
That's extremely efficient, and I'm sure you do get a decent chunk of traffic that just comes in through Google, right? So you kind of have this two-pronged approach, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that a lot of people on YouTube don't utilize necessarily, is an actual website where it's kind of your own domain. It's all things you or your brand. You can
Yeah.
sell things, and it seems like this is a an opportunity that more people could use. But I think one thing that holds people back is like, how difficult was it for you to create your website? Did it take a lot of time? Do you just use something like Squarespace? Kind of what went into that?
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole other that's a whole other podcast episode in its own. Like, I mean, it's something that I would say that before I was a YouTuber, I was, an online marketer, and I could create these websites. I base mine off of WordPress. I self-host. I prefer kind of having that control over giving it to somebody like Wix or Squarespace or something like that. And I do, there's a lot of different options out there. And some people would say that, WordPress now isn't the best option, even though it's the most popular. But that's what I've grew up on. It's what I know and it's what I love. And setting like again, it's like somebody who's inexperienced versus somebody who's experienced. I could spin up a website in 10 minutes, right? Like
Mhm.
I know how to do it. It's not that hard. I think that if it's somebody who's never done it before, if they're willing to like really dig in and learn, like you could set up a website in a day, but it's not about setting it up that really makes the difference. It's about learning the process of, okay, how does Google really like a website to be structured in a way that they would send traffic to it, free of charge. And
Mhm.
um, and that I think is where the skill lies, is not as much in setting up the website as it is in understanding just a little bit of SEO, a little bit of user experience, and making sure that you're not popping up ads all over the place for people. Those are the things that I think make more of a difference.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That there's kind of a base level of skills that can go into creating a website, and it
Yeah.
seems like there's enough tools available now, even if you don't want to use Squarespace or something like that, where it's not going to set you back a ton of time to build a site,
Yeah.
and which is really good to hear.
Mhm.
At some point, I'm definitely going to want to make my own website, but it's like YouTube takes care of so much for you. I think there's an appeal of just kind of posting. If I'm not going to post to YouTube, then I'm going to post to just sort of other social media sites.
Yeah.
But yeah, one advantage of a website is you do get all the revenue. Like there's no revenue sharing, like YouTube taking almost half. It has its advantages if it kind of makes sense for your brand and everything like that.
Correct.
So you've been making some YouTube shorts. I'm curious about your experience with them because obviously YouTube is working on competing with TikTok. I think they've done a good job. I think the YouTube short system is well done and they're constantly refining it. There's obviously the new way of monetizing shorts, the kind of new monetization system that is coming into effect this year in 2023.
Yeah.
Do you feel like shorts are working for you? Most of yours seem to, they get a few thousand views at least. Are you like, how do you feel about them? Are they fun? Are they annoying? Do they feel worth it? Do they add to your long form content traffic? What's the deal?
Yeah, I'm probably in the camp that most people are, which is like, well, let's test this thing out. What I can say and what you've pointed out is I will not be eligible come February 1st for the YouTube Shorts Partner Program
Mm,
because I don't have millions of views on my shorts. So I mean, even talking about it, I just don't feel like I'm qualified to say anything other than I'm just trying stuff out. And learning what works and doesn't work. I think one of the things that I am learning personally, which is I don't know if I want to say it's disappointing, but I used to think that, oh, okay, shorts, all I can do is I can just hire an editor to like chop up my long form videos into something and post it as a short. And maybe that works for some channels. I don't know. For me, it absolutely has bombed. Like that,
mm,
like if I'm gonna do shorts, then what I'm testing out now, and I've got 5 that I've already recorded, and they're with my editor, is I'm scripting out my shorts. They're easier to script out, obviously, and I'm trying different formats, right, and trying to capitalize on different ideas. And I think again, it's just going back to being creative. So, for example, like a lot of my long form videos are tutorials, or they're lists, or they're things that trying to help people improve their privacy and security. For shorts, I decided, okay, I'm going to do some research on which celebrities have been scammed or hacked. And I'm going to try to tell that story in less than 60 seconds to explain why, basically, if they can get hacked, if they can get scammed, and these are smart people, then you can too, right? So trying to introduce that story and see if that works. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I'm going to give it a good try just because I think it's fun to keep trying different things. Like that's what keeps me motivated is trying new things, even if they fail. And uh,
mm.
and so we'll see. We'll see. I'm not great at shorts right now, though. I'll tell you that much.
Well, it's difficult to venture into them with certain types of content. Because, I mean, you're right, it isn't necessarily obvious how to take a format that you already have and translate it into this 1 minute or less vertical video type of thing, where attention spans are even shorter, and it's a whole different beast. Like, I think this is something that a lot of people struggle with, because you're right, I've tried chopping up videos that already exist and turning them into shorts. You know, if I'm working for, or if I have a client and I'm doing it for them, sometimes it works really well. But for other people, not as much. I think I find if somebody is speaking off the cuff more than like in a scripted way, then sometimes that can help. So like if they appear on a podcast, then it's easy to take what you said and turn it into a 1 minute short, because there's so many different thoughts that get shared, and you can sort of contain a thought in a minute or less. Whereas if there's a scripted video, it can be harder because you're the video in and of itself generally is a whole thought. Or maybe there's like smaller sections that build up the video, but even then they might be, 2 minutes long, and then you have to cut it up. And it's harder for that to work. So I'm glad you're kind of trying things out and being creative with shorts. I feel like if you keep going, then you'll figure it out. But I understand why with your kind of style of videos, it might be more difficult to translate into this kind of new market.
Yeah.
So one question I like to ask people is, what is your golden rule for growing on YouTube? Like, what is the main thing that drives you, that you would recommend that everybody have in order to succeed on YouTube, or perhaps any social media?
Yeah. I think, I'm probably going to sound like a broken record because I've already kind of said this a little bit already, but I feel like that ability to have scalable creativity is key, right? Like I feel like I know my limits, and yet I'm constantly being tempted to push beyond those limits. And I've met too many creators that have just burned out. And I think one of the only reasons that I've continued to have even any moderate amount of success on YouTube is because I've been able to maintain a consistent, not just uploading, but just a consistent content creation, editorial platform. Like it's just been something that I've learned to do, and I've had ups and downs. But it's something that I'm passionate enough about, and I think that's where another part of that is just these things are things that I still love learning, and if I stopped loving the learning part of that, I think it would be so much harder for me to continue on. And so I'm glad that it's a subject matter that I enjoy, and that I've been able to find a consistent, scalable creativity that doesn't put me too much on a hamster wheel. It's too hard to keep going at that pace.
I love it. It's simple. It's very true. Scalable creativity in kind of, that creativity discipline combination is so powerful. It's huge. And I completely agree. It's something I've kind of been working on. I feel like I was more pure creativity in my 20s. I just turned 30. Now I'm kind of working more on the discipline, and I'm hoping that eventually they will kind of combine into a beautiful, wonderful something good's gonna happen. And that's where I'm at right now. Well, Josh, thanks so much for joining me. I think it's really cool what you're doing. You have a really important niche. I think staying safe online is huge. You have a good camera presence. Really, everybody check him out. AllThingsSecured. You can learn about VPNs and just anything you could possibly need to know about being secure. And he's got a good vibe too. Some of these channels, they can make you feel really paranoid. He definitely does not do that at all. So Josh, thanks again for being here.
Thanks so much, Grant. Really appreciate it.